Hi guys, hit pause here with a tutorial on how I've done my bullet projectiles for my game. So I'm just going to demo all of the different things that it can actually do. First off, I can kill enemies with it. That's like kind of important. So where are you? Don't hide. So I nailed him right in the face. It projects splatter decals behind it, basically through wherever I hit. It can push physics objects and cause destructible damage sometimes. Sometimes it takes a lot of bullets. This seems to be buggy, actually. I don't know why this I mean, I don't really think that it was taking that much damage, because one of the things I've noticed is that if I just come over here, alright, he's shooting. Stop it! So it takes me 3 shots if I don't shoot him in the face. I don't think it actually... I might have the damage on that thing set to really high, but there's a couple of times where I noticed that like I just have to shoot this like once, see? And then it comes falling down. And then other times, I don't shoot it first. Let's try that again. Let me shoot this guy first. Shot him in the butt. Then I got him in the face. See, now it's like I can't really hurt it. It's like because I've shot the enemy first? Like, why would that make any difference? I think my damage has been changed or something, but what's weird is every projectile has its own behavior. So with that aside, that is a bug that I'm experiencing that I'll try to fix. I'll show you guys how I'm doing everything. First off, a lot of the thing about this kind of thing here is that we're driving a lot of our behavior based on a lot of variables that come in. Okay, we have the component we hit, the other actor we hit, or my component, the other component that we hit. I don't even know. Hit location, hit normal, and then the hit info itself. And the hit info itself basically has all of this information in there too. So I've cleaned it up recently, but before I did this here, where I'm storing the data first, I had lines going everywhere. It looked like freaking Jackson Pollock like just took a shit on my monitor. It was just disgusting. It's like a Furby exploded all over it, and all of its confetti guts were everywhere. It was just impossible to read. It was lines literally everywhere, just crisscrossing in every color, and it was really difficult. So I didn't want to do this. I didn't actually want to do this because I felt like it was just an extra step I didn't need to do. You know, like now I set the variables. Like I don't really need to set them because they're here. But I did it for organizational purposes because it was just so hard to track anything down. So the first thing we do when we take a hit, this is the first thing that happens right here. So I run a sequence. So I capture the data. So basically every single one of these other gets set. Other component gets set, hit info gets set. Okay, then I come down here and I set the location, I set the impact normal, and then I set the hit bone name. A few of the elements that I'm using here I only tracked out to one or two things, so I didn't bother making variables for these things because they're not really getting in the way. But this other component right here, you'll see it's everywhere. Like it's all over the place. So it was literally, like I said, it was just like, you know, 8 or 6 to 8 of those blue lines coming out, 6 to 8 of these guys coming out, and it was just really frustrating. So after we capture the data, okay, so you got to kind of remember the data now, right? So now we've got other component. We get the surface type. Okay, so getting the surface type basically comes from the hit component, and then we get the material, we get the physics material because they do have them. Most of them have it. If it doesn't, it actually gives you an error. But I do check if it's valid first, so that if this isn't valid, then it doesn't do anything. Then we determine the surface by basically going determine surface, and we get the surface type from the physical material. Okay, that's actually something you just say get surface type. And no matter what I hit, I spawn an impact particle. Okay, based on the thing. So determine surface is actually a function that I've done here. Okay, so yeah, only thing I'm doing right now is determining the impact particle. I'm also going to determine the decal to project as well. I haven't done that yet. So we got impact, default, just and I've only got the one particle right now. Okay, but I have it set up so that if I pick up some of these other things, we just set it. The only thing I'm setting right now is cloth and wood gets set to wood. Okay, so it does that to figure out, and then spawns the impact particles. Now the spawning of the impact particles is right here. So that function determined which of the particle effects I'm going to do. Location break is the location from here, because there's actually well, this one's called hit location, but I actually dictated these with break, and well, I didn't really need hit bone name because that only comes from here. But I felt that the impact normal can get confused quite quickly with hit normal, location, and hit location. Like I might forget which one's what. Okay. So after we capture the data, then we get the surface. So that'll spawn a particle, an impact particle at the location that we've hit, right? In order to get the rotation of this, you need to get the normal of the hit and get a rotation from the x vector. That is assuming that your particles are oriented in a positive z. So then we check if we hit a character. So that's the first thing I want to see. Did I hit another character? So if I did, I do this extensive stuff up here where it's not really that difficult, but I check for headshots. If I got a headshot, I increase the damage. We check if we hit ourselves. If we did hit ourselves, we don't want to do anything. Actually, if we did hit ourselves, I actually still want to destroy the actor, because there is a chance that the character is for some reason moving forward or faster than the projectile can come out, so it's a good safety check there. So then we feed the damage info because we're going to apply point damage to it because it's a point damage type. Okay, it's a bullet, which is a point. So the information that it needs is all of this stuff here. So hit info, which comes from over here, gets set from here. I just set hit info. So remember, every time you see a variable here, I'm just setting it from all that stuff. So the other thing that we hit is the damaged actor. How much damage we do is going to go into the base damage. The impact normal will go into the hit from direction. The hit info goes here. The instigator, you can actually just say anywhere, just say get instigator controller. It's kind of a handy thing instead of having to get yourself, get the controller, and then feed that in here, because this is actually this is looking for a controller. You can see controller reference. Then the damage causer is actually looking for an actor. So the damage causer is actually the bullet itself. Okay, the instigator is who fired the bullet, and then the damage type I determine from my character here, which has a it's pretty much defaults to the bullet damage type. Okay, then I add an impulse. Okay, but I also set the impulse to be very low if I hit a character, because I don't want to be knocking the characters around like too hard and too far. If it's like a shotgun, I may eventually split some variables out for impulse against characters, impulse against rigid bodies, impulse against certain things, and then I can determine that based on the actor that I hit. But in this case, I'm just determining between character and physics objects, because if I hit a physics object, I actually want the impulse to be pretty high. Otherwise, I don't really push anything around. Okay, so if I hit something that's simulating physics, or if it's a destructible, I just set the impulse strength to 100. So, but if I hit a character, I set it to 0.1. Okay, and again, I check the headshot here. So this is really handy because this gives you bone name hit. Okay, so this hits the bone. And so in my characters, I kind of over the years have, I mean, when I say years, I mean some of these characters I built like 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I'm still using them, because why not? And Some of them have the head bone called B underscore head, and other ones just have it called head. So I check either one. And if I come up with another one that's, you know, where I for some reason named it, you know, bone cranium, you know, then I can put another or in here for bone cranium. I can just add another pin. Okay, so if the bone name equals head or the bone name equals B underscore head, either way will count as a headshot here. Okay, and if not, we don't do anything to the damage. So a headshot will pretty much kill anything. The base damage is actually, I believe, 10. Okay, so I'm actually doing kind of a lot of damage with the bullets, but it'll take 10 shots to hit somebody if you don't hit them in the head, which is probably a little bit low. Again, we check to see if we hit ourselves, because we need to make sure that if we did shoot our, you know, if for some reason I point the gun down and it goes through me, that I don't register that and damage myself. Okay. Again, so we do the feed damage, we apply the impulse, and then we project a trace forward to pick up the splatter impact point. So we've hit a character. We know we want to throw a decal splatter behind it. Okay, but we only want that to happen for so far. So I set that to about 500. You could probably do it a little bit lower. But we do our standard trace. Okay, this is a standard trace. Just burn this into your head. I say this in almost every video that this is a standard trace. So you get your location. I'm going to eventually, I think after this video, I'm just going to start calling these the standard trace. You can go back to my old videos and look if you need to, but I'm sure that at this point you guys don't need this explanation anymore. You should have this ingrained in your head. Okay, so that's a standard trace, and again, you know, simple how you do it. Get the rotation, get the forward vector, and multiply that. It creates a line, and you add that to the start location, start end. In this case, we're only doing this against world statics. We don't want to create a decal against a dynamic object, because the object will be able to move away from the decal, and if we were to attach it to that object, then the decal could potentially be projecting around onto the static stuffs as well, because as far as I know, decals themselves, they don't have the ability, I think if I remember in UDK, that you could set on the decal the object types that decal would be available to be used on, but we don't have that in UE4. The objects themselves need to say whether or not they accept decals, which kind of blows a little bit, because it would be much easier, because then now every object, no matter what, like all of my characters and all that stuff, they're all going to be guaranteed set to never accept a decal. But there's no skeletal mesh decal that deforms with the character, like to put blood on like a moving character. That doesn't exist. You have to do like a hit mask, and you always have. So if they ever change that, so it really doesn't make too much of a difference. But basically what we do is, so we run a trace. Now what happens is, it's kind of difficult to explain, but the bullet is actually set to, well, this is very important. You'll notice that I have, you know, a pretty cheap particle effect going on here. But on the projectile, the most important thing is that rotation follows velocity, so that way basically this is a spear. Okay, so like if it's tilting down or if it's pointing up, it's always going to point that way, right? So just think of it like a jet. You know, it can only move forward for the most part, so whichever way it's traveling is the way that it's pointing. So we know which way it's pointing. So that's why we use the actor here. That's why we get a trace just straight through wherever the projectile itself was pointing. And again, we only go for world static. So we've just hit a character. If we were to throw a line trace for visibility, we're going to hit that character. We don't want to do that. We'd have to throw that character into the actors to ignore. If it would be awesome, because if there was a way to have a decal be projected onto a skeletal mesh, and that it's stuck with the material and all that stuff, what you could actually do in the end would be, you can shoot one guy in the face, and the guy standing behind him would get blood splattered all over him, because you wouldn't do a line trace for objects, you would do a line trace for visibility, ignore the actor you just hit, and then it would splat whatever was behind it. Doesn't matter what it was. If it's stuck with it, which it doesn't now, which is why we don't do it, but if it did, that would be awesome. Okay, so you guys remember when I said how awesome that would be? Yeah, that was awesome. So then we spawn the splatter decal. So it's the same basic thing. We get the hit from, remember, this is a hit from the trace. This isn't a hit from the location of the bullet. The bullet has already made contact, and now it's shot a line straight forward through the point of contact to determine where am I going to put this splatter. So here comes the break hit result. Okay, so we take the normal, we do a rotation from X vector. That'll give us a Z. That'll orient the Z of whatever we're placing here to angle itself to that surface. We make a transform out of that because it has to be transformed. Then we spawn the actor splatter decal and destroy it. Now the splatter decal is actually a blueprint, and I'll show you guys that in a little bit. So that's when we hit a character. Okay, that's what it does. If we don't hit a character, we want to know, did we hit a physics object? Okay, we want to know that. And then if we did hit a physics object, we run this here. So we increase the strength of our impulse. We then multiply that by our velocity because we want it to be the faster the bullet's moving, the more impact it has. Okay, and then we do a simple add impulse at location. So we get the location of our self. Okay, but the thing is we want to add the impulse to the other component, because remember we've hit. If we don't say component, well, you kind of have to because the target is the primitive component. But basically, it'll throw an impulse at the particular bone that you've hit, or the particular mesh that you've hit, because blueprints can have multiple actors in them, right? Multiple skeletal mesh component or static mesh components. There's nothing stopping a blueprint from having an array of squares, of cubes, and then doing this, you can shoot each and every cube because it picks up which one of those components you hit, and that's what we're firing the impact at. It's very important. But honestly, I don't know if you can do it any other way. I don't even know if it works any other way. And then we apply point damage. Now, if it's just a physics actor, just a simple static mesh that's simulating physics, this is going to basically go nowhere. It'll fire, but it won't do anything because that thing doesn't have any health. Now, if that thing had health, it would decrement the health, but that's what's important, right? Anything that you give health to that receives damage and decrements its own health, you can damage. Now, I'm setting the bullet type here to be bullet damage type. I don't really know. I don't really care to instigate any of this. Now, if I were to be shooting, say, a bridge, and if I wanted to say, hey, here's my little frame thing, if I wanted it so that when I shot this and it destroyed, that it came up with a message and said, hey, Hippos just blew up the thing, you know, to everybody else, then I would need to feed that information in there. But in this case, it's not important to me, so I don't care who instigated, or I don't care what the causer is. It'll default to nothing, you know, so it doesn't really matter. And again, we just feed in the stuff we need. So the actors, then the amount of damage, the impact, hit from direction. You can get the impact normal to do that. Then the hit info there, and then we destroy the actor. So that's what we do on either a dynamic object or a destructible object. And then if it's not one of those, and then the next possible two things that are left are pretty much vehicles or static meshes. And I don't have the case for vehicles yet because I haven't set the vehicle up to really receive that kind of damage. But if it's a static mesh, all I do is spawn a decal at that location, and the decal is the decal material that gets picked up from determined surface. So the decal here for MI wood would be this impact here, and if not, then it's this just crack decal. That's it. That's the only difference. Okay. So again, you know, with glass you could do a shatter image. Plastic you could do, you know, some kind of dent. Metal, I'm going to be doing like a burn scorch mark, so which is pretty cool, and have like a dent, you know, with some chip paint or something on there, or chip surface. So you know, in the end, when I'm ready to go, I'll be able to make this list as huge as it needs to be, however many surfaces I have. But I've just got the basic default guys here for now. Okay, so that's all it does. It just picks up the location. The rotation, here's a little bit of a trickiness. So we know where our bullet hit, right? Because we got the normal from here. Okay, I honestly don't know the difference. Normal of the hit in world space. Normal of the hit in world space for the object that was hit by the sweep. So I'm assuming this is for swept, for the object that was swept. Okay, so for the object that was hit by the sweep and for the object that was swept. So I'm assuming that those are the same, because I know when I'm sweeping up some dust on my floor that the object that was hit by the sweep is the dust, and the object that was swept also happens to be the dust. So I don't really know what the hell they're talking about there, I'll be honest with you. But so we pick up that, remember we got to throw the x vector because we need to align the z point to whatever that normal, impact normal was. And in this case what I do is I break that rotation and then I just go ahead and randomize the roll on it in 360. Okay, and I set that as the rotation. The lifespan can be plus or minus, and then we destroy the actor. So that's the spawning of the just, you know, hey, I hit something, is give me a bullet mark, right? This could be randomized. This could be 0, and the decal that you spawn can be an actor so that the decal can do some behaviors. Like I've done here. Where is it? Here, where you be? Where you be, a decal? Okay, here we go. So this is my actual splatter decal. Now I've added a billboard here because for some reason when you add a decal component, you don't get that cool little decal sprite associated with it when it's in a blueprint like this. There's like literally nothing there. For some reason that really feels like it's at a funky angle, doesn't it? Is the billboard at a funky angle? Rotation. I don't want to make the decal the root. I don't know why that's at a funky angle, because the billboard doesn't have the ability to be rotated as far as I know. It might. So the decal, see, it sucks because when the decal's not, see now the billboard's at a crazy angle, the decal's at 0, 0, 0. So I don't really know, I don't honestly know what's going on there. Absolute scale is 1. Why did they get so humongous? Why did they get so humongous? Anyway, that's the decal that gets spawned. So what happens is on its construction script, we determine the world transform here are going to be basically what we're determining is the transform of the decal in its own local space. So when I take one of these decals and I stick it here, it's pointing forward in the X. Okay, so what happens is it randomizes its transform. Okay, so as you can see, it's randomly rotating that in the yaw. Okay, totally randomizing it as I move it, and that's happening in the construction script. So we just add relative rotation. So basically from 0 to 360 in the roll, pitch and yaw are 0 because we're adding this to it. We don't want to add anything to the pitch or yaw. Okay, so decal 1 here gets that. What am I doing here? Oh, and I'm also setting a random size for it. Okay, so it gets smaller and bigger, and I do that into scale. That's all the reason for this to exist here. So that's where we spawn it. Now when we go into the actual begin play, this is where we create a dynamic material. We set this dynamic material as our variable, then we set a decal image, and I have random between 0 and 3. Now let me show you the material for it, because it's actually, it's not too complex or nothing, but it does have some trickery going on in it. So it's going to randomize between 4 decal images, and the way that I've done that is actually right here. So we do this kind of backwards. So we get this image, right? So what we do is we use an if statement. So if that parameter is 3, anything greater than that or equal to that, we're going to use the alpha channel. I do these backwards. So I want this to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So if it equals 3, okay, greater than or equals, we're going to use the fourth one, because remember, these are we're kind of doing this by index. This is actually 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is 3. If it's less than that, then we run a check. Now remember, A is always going to go to the decal. This is what we're always going to compare against. But in this case, we're checking against 3. So if we're less than 3, then we're going to check against 2. So if we're equal to 2 or greater than 2, we're going to go to blue. Now this actually goes nowhere. Okay? This will never go anywhere, no matter what. Because if it is greater than, it'll happen if it equals 2, but this happens too. So like half of this goes nowhere, because if it's greater than 2, well, unless it's 2.5, right? But like I say, in this case, because I'm going to feed it integers, you don't have integers here, by the way, that I know of. Yeah, there's no integer here. It's all float. So this just goes here. And again, if it's less than 2, then we check it against 1. So basically, if it's equal 1, we use green. If it's greater than, we use green. But if it's less than that, which means it's 0, then we use the red channel. So regardless of which one I have, and if I show you, each one of these has a completely different image of a splatter on each channel. Okay, there's one on all 4 channels there. So as I move it around, now it's not going to randomize the decal, but it will randomize the size and the rotation. So after that gets spawned, we set random decal image here, okay, between 0 and 3. Then we start a timer for when it's going to dissolve, and I'm setting it anywhere between 5 and 10 seconds. Don't want it looping. This thing's only going to be this is a one-off shot. This thing's getting spawned. It's going to destroy itself. And then what we do is we run a timeline. Okay, the value here is going to be from 0.5 to 0 over the course of 1 second. Okay, and we're setting this dissolve radius. Once this is complete, which means the dissolve radius is now 0, we just destroy the decal actor. Okay. So back to the material, all of this, like I said, creates a choice between which channel are we using. But in the end, we still get, no matter what, we get a splatter here, okay? Then what I do is get rid of that because I don't need it. I was for testing. I'm using a sphere gradient with a dissolve radius parameter. I subtract this from it so that I break up the edge of the sphere, because if you look here, if I preview this node, that's like a really kind of too noticeable sphere. But if I preview with this, you can see that I've broken it up because I'm subtracting this image from it. I make sure that that gets clamped, because anything that's 0 on the sphere minus anything that's 1 here will become -1, and we don't want any negative alphas. So I clamp that and I just multiply them together, and that's all the material is. So as this comes down to say like 0.1, you'll see that it becomes tighter and tighter and tighter. Okay, there's 0.25, right? If I go to 1, it's like way huge. You actually want the radius to be half the diameter, right? You want the radius to go from here to here, so it's going to be 0.5. And that's all I do to dissolve the thing out. So after 5 or 10 seconds, it runs this timeline and drives that dissolve radius down. And again, once it's finished, destroys itself, cleans everything up, nice and neat. And that's it. That's how my entire projectile is behaving. And there's a lot to it actually for a bullet if you think about it. I mean, I don't know how, I don't really know any other way to do this than this, You just got to check what's it hit, right? Because you don't want to be spawning decals against the skeletal mesh. You don't want to be pushing a character as hard as you push a physics object, because then you're just going to knock them like sailing, depending on, you know, their mass and stuff. You need to know what surface you hit so you can determine which particles and which decals to actually play, right? You want to know if you've hit a physics object, you want to know if you've hit a destructible, you know, you want to know if you've hit a character, you want to know if you've hit a vehicle, you maybe want to know if you've hit John, you know? So, was it John Kerry who got shot by that guy with the shotgun? Or I don't know, I don't remember any of that shit. So anyways, yeah, that's it. Hopefully you guys found that useful. It is quite complicated. It actually can be a little daunting at first. It didn't take me too short of a time. It actually kind of took a while to get it all working, but it's working okay now, except for that one bug there. And there's a lot of weird bugs that show up. So if I hit him in the face, that's a headshot. Right? That was 10 times damage. If I don't hit him in the face, see, I hit him in the butt. I hit him again, and he's not dead yet. Now he's dead. Because I do 10 damage and he has 30 health, right? So I have to hit him in the face to actually kill him, which is pretty cool. Now, there's another aspect to this whole thing that drove me absolutely balls out crazy. My projectile has in it somewhere I think it's on begin play somewhere, or in the construction script. Here's an important aspect, and this I got help from somebody in our Skype group, and I really thank him. He knows who he is if he watches this video. I went through the rabbit hole of the entire universe trying to figure out how to get my character to not shoot my own dumb ass in my own dumb ass, basically. Because if you look at my character, a couple things going on here. I've got a 3-player mesh, and I've got the 1-player arms. Here's the thing. I want to shoot this guy in the face with my gun, right? Because he's the other players too. I want to be able to shoot him in the head. But he's the other player, but so am I. So what happens is when I turn my 1-player view to look down, or down and to the left, this gun here will actually go down and be like in his leg. Or if I just turn it somewhat to the left, there's a potential that his nose and the animation of this, or especially when I aim, end up crossing through each other, right? This, I don't have any way to say, hey, this is just some kind of crazy ghost thing. I can't turn the collision of it off, because then nobody will be able to shoot me. I can't say, hey, don't hit rat collision, because that's me, because you're a rat collision too, and I want to hit you. I really do. Not you, but you know what I'm saying. I want to hit that other player. I want to shoot him. I want to shoot him right in the face, you know. And he wants to do the same thing to me, and we need to be able to do that to each other. We need to be able to shoot each other in the face, but we also don't want to shoot ourselves in the face, right? I mean, isn't that kind of like humanity, like in a nutshell? Humanity's always wanted to, you know, kill the other guy but not kill himself. That's been true since freaking caveman times. So there was no way to do it. It was a conundrum. I thought, you know, before I knew that node, I didn't think it was possible, because here's the thing. UDK had a flag. It was in code that said, hey, ignore instigator, right? Be block instigator or something like that. And you could set that to false. And I didn't know that I couldn't find it here, and I couldn't get it to work. I didn't know it existed. I looked for everything, you know, ignore and all this stuff, but it just didn't work. I just never found it for some reason. I think it had to be in the construction script or something. So this guy, like I said, without that, there's no way to not hit yourself. It's impossible. You can't do it. So the projectile has this, which is ignore actor when moving, and we just ignore the instigator. So I can freely, this is awesome, this is one of the awesome things, is because I can freely say, hey, I can hit anything with this bullet, except myself, and I don't have to give myself some crazy collision channel, because that wouldn't work either. I was, you know, thinking, hey, I'm gonna make a sphere around me that detects any bullets that come in, and if those bullets are enemy bullets, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the collision of my character on, and their collision is gonna be off the whole rest of the time. That would be so heavy, it would be ridiculous. This is so neat and so tidy and just works. I can't shoot myself because of this, and without this on your bullets, you can officially shoot yourself. Now, oh, my elbow, oh, that was a funny bone. Okay, I'm good. I'm not good, but I'll work through it. Okay, so that was my funny bone. The collision that I'm using, the type that I'm using on this, is not instant hit trace type. Right? It's not. It's physical physics collision object, you know. And so when this thing is hauling ass, it's very important that you come and show the advanced details, and that you enable. Why didn't I not do that? You enable CCD. I can't believe I didn't have that on. And the reason is because you may want this bullet to travel. Is CCD's not on here? Yeah, I can't believe I had that off. But my bullets are actually not going that fast. But if the bullet is going to travel really fast, see, like right now it's set to 15,000, but I'm actually limiting it to 6,000. That's how fast my bullet goes. Okay. I'm actually in the end going to determine this based on the bullet type that you're using. So if you shoot a 22, it's not going to go as fast. And I may or may not up the gravity scale a little bit so it drops faster, or maybe I'll keep all the bullets the same general looking speed but increase or decrease gravity to determine how far they can fly, because I want like a 50 caliber sniper rifle shot to go faster, farther, stronger, you know, all that stuff, have more damage, everything, than say a 9mm or a 22 or a BB gun or an airsoft gun or a spitwad, right? I mean, as we go through the scale here. So it's important, you know, that the CCD be on, and at a certain point, I know it was working for me fine, but it's because I haven't breached that speed barrier yet. I'm actually only moving about 6,000 units. Also, the particle here is actually kind of large, and I don't really like that, but it gives the players leeway, you know, and it's important to have that kind of leeway. You don't want, if you had like a tiny little point in space, it's just, you know, they got to be too accurate in this case. But again, you know, we have gravity. So I have a projectile that's going to launch at a ballistical arc. Ballistical? It's going to have a ballistic trajectory. So I need to set all this stuff up. And that's why my projectile also has all of this stuff in here, because I'm not just doing a trace. It's different, right? If you're doing an instant hit, you're just basically running traces off of the thing. And when my character actually fires the bullet is here, and I have two cases of whether or not I'm firing it at what I'm actually looking at, okay, because I do a check on that, and if not, then I just fire it based on which way I'm rotating. But I send myself as the instigator. So now it can be scored. Now if if hit pause shoots Half Hawk right in his stupid face, then it's going to tell Half Hawk that I'm the one who pwned his ass. Now that doesn't work the other way. If Half Hawk shoots hit pause in the face, then there's something wrong with the universe. I don't get shot. I'm too good. So I don't need to worry about it going the other way. I'm never going to get hit by anybody, ever, in any game, ever. Just kidding. No, it works in all directions. Make sure you send the instigator when you spawn a projectile. That way you can tell everything else, hey, with this, I'm the guy who did it, you know, or I can tell who hit me, you know, and I can get my dirty sweet revenge on him when I respawn. But if he gets me if he gets me again, then, you know, shame on him, he's cheating. So that's it. I don't think there's anything else I really need to show. I'll just demo it one more time again. I don't know why I lose the ability to shoot the destructible actors after I hit the guy. I don't know that yet. I still have to figure that out. So I didn't get him in the face. He's doing a straight up melee attack. So I can hit him. I can hit these. Can I hit these things? I think these things have gone to sleep. I think I have them set to go to sleep. But it's kind of cool that way because, well, no, they're doing it when I'm climbing on it. I should be impulsing them. I can push them. I don't know. There's like I said, it's not perfect or anything like that. I still got to figure out a few things, but the general aspect of it is there. It's working okay. I got this thing going. It's a camera. I don't have to. But now I can. I wreck it now, and I made it a ragdoll. There's one thing I can't figure out about ragdolls is how to set the actual the angular damping on the constraints. It doesn't do anything. Linear damping works just fine. I can get this thing to float down to the bottom of the surface like it's a, just float down like it's a leaf, or sinking in water really slowly. But I cannot get the rotation to have any damping on it. I've set it from 1 to 0.1 to 9 billion, 900 trillion. I've set everything. I've spammed the 9 key until I filled up the field, and it just does nothing. It literally does nothing. Angular damping on rotation joints don't work. I can't get it to work. I'm telling it to use damping, but it just, I don't know. Can't get it. But anyways, that's a tiny little update there. That's I got the wreck mesh working on the helicopter. It does take damage when it hits now and explodes. And there's how I did my bullets. So this is HipPaw signing off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.